Well, we're waiting. Okay. Caddyshack, welcome back to my journey through the 80s, through all the 80s movies that I own, single disc or double disc edition, like double packs. I'll do those too, but for right now, we're only on the singles, and we're on Caddyshack. I'm alright. Don't gotta worry about me. And you know, I bought this movie a long time ago, and I always wonder why I haven't watched it as much as some of the other 80s comedies. And I've always said this, that some early 80s movies are always tough for me to watch. I don't know. Quality type thing. But there are some good comedies, and I think this is one of the good comedies from the early 80s. To try to explain to you the story is kind of weird, because there's so much focused on in this movie. One of the main plots is the character of Danny, who wants to get a scholarship by caddying and basically kissing the ass of this judge, played by Ted Knight, you may know from the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Oh, Mary, Lou, oh. So that's one plot. The other one concerns Rodney Dangerfield, who has a rivalry with the judge as well. And then you have Ty Webb, played by Chevy Chase, who's schmoozing a girl. We'll get to talk about the girl. Plus, he's, bachelor pad, and he's not a very good... he's a golfer, but he's kind of a casual player. He doesn't play for stakes. And then you have Carl, played by Bill Murray, who's the groundskeeper, the greenskeeper, whatever they call him, who's trying to get rid of this gopher. And upon learning something, it made me really think, and becomes very clear. So, turns out the gopher stuff was added last minute. And that really opened my mind, because there's a lot of stuff with the gopher, even that is really disconnected, even though it does come back around at the end of the film. I think that was because they wanted to connect it to the rest of the goings-on. But there are a bunch of stuff in this film that happen and then are dropped towards the end. And this was written by Harold Ramis. Brian Doe Murray, Harold Ramis, and Douglas Kinney, right? They wrote it. And, Harold Ramis did other movies as well. He was involved with Ghostbusters and Stripes, which would come out the next year. But, and also have Bill Murray in it. But this one, there's stuff that happens at the beginning that is just sort of dropped. There's even stuff that happens and are dropped 10 minutes later. There's one thing that comes up, and like 10 minutes later, it's like, nah, never mind. It's very weird. So we start following Danny Noonan, played by Michael O'Keefe. I always thought it was Lance Guest, but it's not. It's Michael O'Keefe. I'm like, oh, Lance Guest. And I looked at him like, that's not Lance Guest. Maybe it was the hair. No, it's Michael O'Keefe. And he's okay. He's okay for a lead. I don't know. It starts off as we're going to follow these caddies, the teenagers, kind of like Animal House or something like that, or Porky's, one of those comedies. Porky's hadn't happened yet, but one of those kind of teen comedies that you have at this point. But not really. I mean, Danny's one of the main characters, but he's not really the one I think out of all the caddies, he's the one we follow the most, because his plot line is he wants to get a scholarship. I'm going to get a scholarship to go to college. He wants to be a lawyer, I guess. And he's got this girlfriend who was also in Animal House. And she has a Scottish accent for some reason. Is she supposed to be the daughter of the one groundskeeper guy we see only at the beginning of this movie and not again? I don't know. And he's got this girlfriend, right? And clearly they show you, I'll tell you, they set this up for this quote-unquote twist later, they show that they're very sexually active because they're in bed and stuff and they're fooling around, and then it cuts to something else. And so to kind of try to get this scholarship, he's got to smooch the butt of Judge Smale, played by Ted Knight, who's essentially the villain of the film, in a way. And then we're introduced to Lacey, the niece of the judge. Okay? She's a whore. Plain and simple. No tact. She's a whore. Because she starts out, she shows up, and she's got Tony, who's sort of set up as if he's Danny's rival, but that really doesn't go anywhere. Something is dropped, like it's set up their rivals, they're fighting and stuff. And then just at the end of the film, they kind of solve that with, hey, yeah, you did it, you can do it. Yeah, you could do it, Danny, you can do it. And it's like, wait a minute, you guys were at each other's throats beginning this movie. There was nothing that happened in the middle of the film to solve this, and yet you just, yeah, Danny. I know friends, they get in fights and stuff. I had a fight with a friend of mine over here in his open field thing over, he was in a bad mood and decided to be a dick, and I didn't want to take it. And so we kind of fought, but you learn not to mess with me because I'm a scrapper. I'll get you out. I'm a scrapper. I may not be much. I may be fat. I may be short. But I get to scrapping. I left some dingers on his face. Piss me off. I'm just saying. But so sometimes friends fight. But this guy is not presented as a friend at the beginning. Tony. But, it's very weird. It's very weird. So, like, Tony's like, hey. And he's, like, rubbing her shoulders. And, hey, and it takes off with her. And then a couple of scenes later, she's with Chevy Chase. And they're flirting. And he's taking her to his pad. And he's rubbing oil on her back and everything. Apparently the producer, John Peters, coerced her into being naked in the film. And, yeah, she didn't want to, but, one of those things. But anyway, yeah, you don't see anything here. But later, like, she's doing Chevy Chase this day. And then the very next day, she's hitting on Danny. She's like, hey. Hi. And then the next thing you know, they're in the judge's house doing it. And it's not a very well-directed sex scene because, like, they're kissing. And then she's laying there topless and he's kissing on her. And it flips. He's topless. She's kissing on him. And then they just sort of cuddle. And it's like, wow, that sucked for a sex scene. And I'm pretty sure, like, for a rated R movie, it is kind of tame. There's some swearing. The only reason why it's rated R is because of the tits. That's got to be it. The nudity has to be the only reason why it's rated R, because the swearing, maybe there's like 1 or 2 F-bombs, but with PG-13, back in the early 80s, you could do a PG movie with at least 1 F-bomb. I'm saying. It's very weird. And this is rated R. I looked. Unlike the other ones like Jaws or Airplane that I thought were rated R, but aren't. I mean, hell, this had tits in it. But I guess maybe the implication here was that it was a sex scene. It was a badly directed sex scene, but it was a sex scene. Maybe Harold and Ramis don't know sex scenes. Who knows? But, yeah, this chick is on everyone. And by the end of the film, when they're playing the golf game, she's winking at Chevy Chase again. It's like, woman! Even the judge is like, I know my niece, she likes to be free. Like, no shit, she likes to be free. And because, like, he catches her and Danny, and he chases her around, and the next day, he's like, Danny's called to talk to him, and he's like, he's not even pissed at him because he knows it's his niece's fault because of her frivolous lifestyle. And so he just doesn't want him to go out. He's like, I won't say anything. And then this is when we find out, after this, okay, we find out that Danny's actual girlfriend, yeah, remember that? He had a girlfriend, maybe pregnant. And he's like, oh, I've been a dick. No, you're not. Yes, I am. Okay, maybe you are a little bit. And he's like, I don't care. I want to marry you. I want to, that whole thing. I want to do this. And again, an argument. 10 minutes of the movie's runtime later, she's jumping around outside. What are you doing? Have you gone loopy? I'm not pregnant. I'm like, then what was the point of that? What was the point of that? And that's dropped. And so is the whole Danny cheated on his girlfriend thing. That never comes back. There's never any repercussions for it. He doesn't get in trouble. She doesn't get pissed off. There's no argument from that. I mean, you could take out the pregnancy thing, and say that she finds out about it because it's been rumored around the place because the judge was chasing him, and people talking and found out the truth, and that got back to her. Or maybe Tony found out. Maybe when they're chasing around, Tony was walking up to the house. He saw them. And Tony sees this, figures out what happened, and tells the girlfriend. She gets pissed. And that's the argument they have. Then they can make up later. I don't know. That never comes back around, him cheating on it. It never happens. And again, if you'd done that, you could have had more with the caddies and the teenagers and stuff, which just is dropped. Yeah. And then you have everything with Carl, Bill Murray's character, trying to take down this gopher, and that, like I said, it feels disconnected. Once I heard that it was like put in last minute, I'm like, it does feel kind of disconnected until the end of the film. And yeah, you have that going on, and that kind of cuts in with Chevy Chase's story, if you want to call it that, where I guess he's trying to make better of himself, but he's playing golf outside because he makes a bet with the judge. Actually, it's Ronnie Dangerfield's character that makes a bet with the judge for $40,000 apiece per team. So it's $80,000 period, and it's $40 apiece for each team member. So it's going to be Ronnie Dangerfield and Chevy Chase versus Ted Knight and this other guy. The judge and the other guy. Dr. Beeper, I think his name is called. I think he's only called that because his beeper keeps going off. Well, Ronnie Dangerfield has a phone in his golf bag. Tony's is. I like that Tony was his. Tony is this character that's just kind of there, and he's always got a cigarette in his mouth. It's really weird, but yeah, I don't know. I thought I'd seen the actor before, but I couldn't find anything. He kind of looks like Ralph Macchio. Ralph Macchio would have been too young to play this role. This is 80. I think it's I don't know. I think he would have been about 13. Because when he did The Outsiders in 83, he was actually like 17 playing 15? I don't know. My stomach just gurgled it. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? It gurgled it. Yeet. So anyway, yeah. And so, like, Rodney Dangerfield is the funniest thing in this movie. He's doing his one-liners. Apparently, I found out when he was doing his lines on set, he thought he was bombing because no one was laughing. This is one of his first movies that he did. And someone had to explain to him, no, hey, if they laugh, they ruin the take. So they're actually holding back laughter because if they laugh, they're, so if anything, he's like trying more and more to get people to laugh. So he just keeps on going. And it's not bad. It's pretty good comedy. I thought he was pretty funny. Like, and there is the lines. There's the whole Dalai Lama story with Carl. He said to me, Gunga de Gunga, Gunga de Gunga. And he's talking to this kid, a caddy, and he's got this pitchfork, and as he's talking, he's getting closer and closer to the caddy's chest, and the caddy's just like, and he's talking, I had the Dalai Lama. And the Dalai Lama, said to me? He said, Gunga de Gunga, Gunga de Gunga. I said, what does that mean? I said, and he's like, so we got done, and I said, well, what do you pay me? He's like, well, you're not going to get any money, but you're going to get, like, sense of enlightenment or something before he dies. He's like, so I got that going for me. Whatever that means. But yeah, it's just, yeah. So it comes down to this big golf game. You got Rodney Dangerfield and Chevy Chase, and they're not doing good. Rodney Dangerfield is playing the worst game of my life. And then, so he hits the ball. It bounces off this thing. It hits him in the arm. Oh, my arm. It's broke. I can't play. Because he's trying to, so that, call a draw. But the judge is like, no, if you don't play, you forfeit. So they pick Danny. And this is where the whole plot with him trying to smooch the judge's ass. Because he's even at this point, you can't say that he's dropped it yet. And he hasn't even, I don't think he's even been talked to about it. No one talks to him, hey, you gotta you gotta, maybe you don't need to do this. Maybe, it's another conflict they could have had in a film, I guess. But, like, he's caddying for the judge, and they're like, and the judge is like, well, here, you can use my son as your teammate. He goes, no, it's our team. We get to choose our teammate. And we pick Danny. And Danny just automatically, it's like, well, then you don't need a scholarship. Well, then I guess I'm not. And so he just automatically turns on the judge with no real reason to. Again, another thing that's dropped. The pregnancy thing dropped. This dropped. Even, like, Chevy Chase's relationship with Denise is dropped, sort of. Because, like I said, there is some kind of, she gets worried about him, and there's, like, a little bit of flirting, I guess. But, there's a lot of things that are dropped. Oh, I forgot to mention the duty scene where the caddies get swim time for 15 minutes from 1 to 1:15. And during this, some kid drops a Baby Ruth bar in the pool by accident, and they think it's a turd. And really, it's funny, but the funniest part is when Carl finds it and eats it. But, like, it's just another subplot in this movie. It's just another thing that happens, and then it's never mentioned again. But, like, why doesn't Carl say, it's a candy bar, just a candy bar, But no, he eats it, and the lady faints. It's like, what? It's just a candy bar. You should say that. What's the candy bar? But the scene just ends after she faints, and it's like, okay, I think you could have explained more there, but fine. So yeah, it comes down to this golf game. It comes down to one hit. The judge gets a birdie, and so it's up to Danny to win. Okay? And in my opinion, Danny doesn't win. We'll get to why I believe he doesn't actually win, and that the judge actually wins this. Because even the first time I saw this, it didn't make sense. But he's playing a golf. He gets the putter. He hits it, and it's just short, right on the edge of the hole, not falling in yet. And just at this point, Carl, throughout the whole golf game, is setting up explosives. And so he hits the thing, blows up the entire fucking golf course, and the blast, the ground shaking. It shakes the ground, allowing the golf ball to fall into the hole. The problem is, the game was over. It didn't go in. That was done. It was done. Yet, it went in, and everyone's cheering. Danny's like, yay, and they all like, congratulations, and they walk him. Everyone walks away to celebrate, and then Rodney's like, yeah, there you go, $80,000, pay it up. And he's like, I'm not paying you anything. Which, yeah, he shouldn't have to. He didn't get the ball in. The ball didn't go in when he made the shot, therefore it was done. It didn't go in. The explosive knocking it in doesn't count. It doesn't count, and I'm sorry. I know I'm supposed to root for the hero. I'm supposed to root for Danny. But to me, no. It'd be the equivalent of it getting to the edge and Lou going and knocking it in right after. It's an assistance. It was assisted by something. The explosion assisted in knocking the ball in the hole. Therefore, it doesn't count. In fact, Danny should be disqualified. I'm just saying maybe they should have had more passes at writing this movie. I don't hate this movie. I actually like it. I did laugh quite a bit. But it's going to be a middle of the road for me. And of course, we end with all right. And all this disposals for nothing because I guess that is the funniest thing in the movie. He destroys the entire golf course, but the golfer is still alive. And yes, there is a sequel, which you bet your ass I'm going to eventually be covering, whether it's in the next sequel-a-thon or a third one. I'm going to eventually cover it. I got enough. I could do a second sequel-a-thon when I'm ready. I still have to review some first movies for that. But I got enough. But, yeah, middle of the road. It's fine for what it is, but it's... As comedies go, it's not going to be one I go back to a lot. But I think it's still a good comedy, but not one of the greats, in my opinion. When I think 80s comedies, I think Porky's. Porky's is a good one, which eventually I'm going to review. And that'll be after I do Project 80s. I know it's going to defeat the purpose if I buy more 80s movies after I do Project 80s. Who knows? But I'm just doing the ones I own right now. And I would love to talk about Porky's in 1981, but I don't own it. And I don't want to outsource to buy things. You know, go and buy other movies. Because there's that and another movie from 1982, I think, that I was going to get. And I stopped myself and said, no, I said I wasn't going to buy anymore. I'm just going by what I own right now. And so I may eventually do updates. Like, of course, I'm going to buy more movies. So maybe eventually I'll do like a small little updates. Project 80s Update 1981. And just with the one, not every single one that I have again, the ones that I've bought that are additions to that year. But, you know, speaking of which, we got one more movie in 1980 before I can officially start the Project 80s series the way I'm doing it. But yeah. So yeah. What are your thoughts on Caddyshack? Comments below. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.